Good morning. A little while ago I was in the car driving and I heard Richard Fidler's Conversation Hour, and it was about Benjamin Jordan, who among other things is a paraglider. And on a paragliding trip in Mexico he landed in a valley that was covered in this orange and black stuff, and there was this strange buzzing noise right through the valley, and he didn't know what it was, and he was wondering what was covering the trees and the rocks and everything. And then they moved and he realised it was millions and millions and millions of butterflies, monarch butterflies. And he was overwhelmed by the beauty and the wonder and the strangeness of it all, and he went away and studied up and discovered that these monarch butterflies make the journey south for the winter from Canada down to this particular valley, this only valley in Mexico. And they all come from wherever in Canada and they all migrate south into this valley. But it takes 4 generations of butterflies to get there, to make this pilgrimage, this migration south and back again. And no one knows how the butterflies pass on the information of how to get to this valley and how to get home. But one generation passes it on to the next, to the next, to the next, and it goes on and on. And fascinated by this and the threat to these butterflies, Benjamin Jordan decided to make the trip himself from Mexico to Canada, following this migration route of the monarch butterflies, to raise awareness but also to experience something of this journey and what it might be. And so he set off in his paraglider with his support team and videos, and he's made a documentary on it, and you can look that up and look up his name on the internet. It's a fascinating trip and journey. And I remember one point where he climbs up the peak, as he does each day, to launch himself in his paraglider. And he launches and he goes out and he's trying to move out away from the cliff faces that present danger to him. But he can't find the currents, the air currents, and he's losing a bit of altitude, and he's not going anywhere where he needs to go. And suddenly this bird, I can't remember exactly how he describes it, but from memory this bird, a hawk or an eagle, comes down and looks around and circles around, and then kind of goes in front of him and looks back as if to say, "Come on, follow me." That's how Benjamin experienced this moment. And so he lets go of his need to control and go this way and follows the bird. And the bird takes him in closer to the cliff faces where he was avoiding. And he's not sure, but he follows the bird's wisdom. And suddenly there's this uplift. This current takes him up above the rocks and the cliffs and into the air currents, the currents that he's been looking for and he needs. And they take him. The bird kind of looks up, gives a thumbs up, not really, goes on its way, and Benjamin Jordan travels his trip. I thought of this when I was listening and thinking about it. I thought of a journey I made, a little one. It was a school excursion. We went to the Snowy, and part of the trip was a camping overnight where 2 rivers meet. One was the mighty Snowy, although the Snowy River there wasn't too wide and it wasn't that deep, but it was freezing cold. And I know that because we had to wade across it. We had to take off shoes and socks and tie them around our neck and hold the packs and everything else we're carrying up above our heads and wade. It was kind of thigh, waist deep. Freezing cold, but a gentle flow and not too wide. It was so cold, we had the food we had in plastic bags, and they were tied in sacks, tied to the riverbank, floating in the river to keep them cold. After we'd set up the camp, it was time for a bit of fun, and so the leaders took us up the other river, upstream of the other river, which was much warmer and flowing much more freely. And they showed us how to wade in and then kind of do a little jump up and put our feet out in front of us in a sitting position and let the current take us down the stream, winding away through the river, past the rocks on either side of the riverbank, and some in the middle, and submerge over and under and around, and to a place where we could get out before the 2 rivers merged. And as I was standing in this line of boys waiting to go into the river, there was a sense of kind of excitement and anticipation, but also anxiety and uncertainty. What would happen, you know? What were the dangers, you know? What would I hit? What if, you know? Some guys were just full of bravado and diving in, and when it came to my turn, I waded in and did what I was supposed to do, just jumped up a bit and sat down. And for the first part of the trip, I was fighting for control, trying to use my hands to guide me, to pull me away from this or that, or push. And the more I tried to regain control and do it my way, the harder it got and the more messed up I got, and I was rolling and reeling. And I had to let go. What I had to do finally was to just let go and trust the current. Trust that the current would take me where I needed to go. It would pass the rocks on the riverbank and past the rocks in the middle and over and lead me to where I needed to go. And when I let go, when I just let the current take me, it was fun. It was fun. And there was a freedom. And the rest of the trips down the river were great fun. And this letting go is really hard, particularly in a culture that is so obsessed with control, controlling our own lives and our own destinies. Through accumulation of more and more wealth. If we have more wealth or more power, we have more control, or more education and knowledge, better career or whatever it is. But everything around us is about control. And when we see the evening news, there's the control that people express over others, so often with violence, domestic violence that happens, or gangland warfare where gangs fight for control of a particular turf or income, finances, money, or nations fighting leadership, fighting for control, or nations taking over nations, like the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, vying for control and power. And so it's antithetical, it's counterintuitive to let go. To let go and trust in something else. To trust in this flow, whether it's a current in a river, air currents and the bird that will lead us, or this innate sense of direction that monarch butterflies have. And this week in churches around the world, there'll be the celebration of Pentecost. Pentecost is and was an ancient Jewish festival, the festival of weeks, Shavuot. It's a week of weeks, 50 days after Passover. And it celebrates the first fruits of the harvest, the bounty of the earth. But in the more ancient traditions, it also celebrates the receiving of the law by Moses on Mount Sinai. And in that story, Moses on this mountain is surrounded by a theophany, this revelation of God, manifest in the forces of nature, wind and fire and lightning and thunder. These things represent that God is present in the story. And on this particular Pentecost, which was the first Pentecost after that first Easter, the Easter, the Passover, when Jesus was crucified and died, and then this mystery of resurrection, this wonder, and this experience, this post-Easter experience of these disciples. And now as they wait, he's gone, and they wait. They wait for the next thing that God is going to do, this next wondrous thing of the coming of Spirit that is promised to them. And they don't know what that means. And there they are, in a room, waiting, praying, singing, worshipping, reading scriptures with each other. 120, we're told. 120 seems a very round and significant number. And it is, because in the biblical language, these numbers are important. 12 is the number of God's people, the Old Covenant, the 12 tribes of Israel, and in the new one, the 12 disciples. And here 120, 10 times that 12, the new people of God, if you like. And they're waiting for God to do God's new thing. And on this Pentecost, whilst they're waiting, there's this wonderful story that Luke tells in his second volume of Acts. This story of God's radical way with people in the world and the transformation that takes place in their lives and the lives of communities and in the nation. And they're praying and praising, and it's like wind blows through this place, the sound of wind, and fire, flames, tongues of fire descend, and the people are filled with spirit, with joy, with this spirit of love and connection and life and joy and empowerment, of courage. And that's what the Spirit is about. The Spirit brings us together and connects us with this God who is the source, the web of everything, the tapestry that holds all life together. that weaves the creation, the rocks and mountains and hills and plains and valleys and animals and trees and plants and sky and sun, moon, stars, and the people, and holds everything in this balance, this wonder. And so the Spirit fills these people in their lives, and it's overflowing, and they speak the language of love, the language of every people, of all the nations that are gathered in Jerusalem that day, people from across the empire, Jewish people who have come to celebrate Shavuot, Pentecost. And as they go out, overflowing with enthusiasm and wonder, speaking this good news that they've experienced, people hear them. Some hear this good news in the language of their heart, and they respond and they follow and they join in. And for others, it's a babbling of drunken people. And then Peter stands up. This Peter who just a few weeks earlier was afraid and lacking courage and denied knowing Jesus and hid with the disciples in a room lest the religious leaders and the Romans come for them as well. This Peter, who was afraid and uncertain, is now bold and stands before the crowd that's growing and says, brothers and sisters, these men and women you see, they're not drunk. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning. They're filled with the power of love, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of God who has come upon us. And he talks about their own prophets, particularly Joel, who promises or prophesies that this Spirit will come and young and old will dream dreams and see visions, this new way of being and living in the world, this way of God, this way of love and inclusion, of justice and peace and hope, this way that brings life for all people and all of the earth. And as he speaks and shares his story of Jesus and the experiences they've had, some people, their hearts are moved and they're filled with his Spirit and they feel it and they join in, and others don't. But the church begins, the movement grows that day. A movement of love and life and hope. And in this experience of the Spirit, people learn to let go. To let go of their need to control and define and flow in the Spirit, in its love and its life and freedom. And that's the way of life. That's the way we're invited into. To try and let go of our need to control things, to define things, our need of fear, or to let go of fear and judgment, to let go of the uncertainty and the anxiety that overwhelms us, and to find our faith and our trust in this God who is bigger and deeper and richer than anything else we can know. And the Spirit that was breathed into us at the beginning of time is in us and breathes life and hope and joy and love into the world. And that's what we're invited to walk into. And as Benjamin Jordan let go of his fear and followed this eagle into the wind currents, and then follow the currents and let them take him on his journey. As the monarch butterflies follow that innate sense of being, of who they are, passed on from generation to generation, and engage in this long journey. As I let go on that river and let the current take me, we're invited to let the Spirit take us and lead us into new life.